All right, so now let's move on and talk about output gaps. And so what an output gap is the difference between our equilibrium y, where our AS and AD curve meet, and y star. And remember, y star is potential output. So if we used all the factors of production, all of our factors of production at their normal rates, how much would we produce as a country? Y is where AS equals AD. And we can think of, there's kind of two different scenarios, or maybe there's three if this equals 0 as well, right? So let's just draw the two that are in the slides here. So we're at the price level and real Y. I almost wrote quantity down there. Real Y. All right, so let's first think about what Y star is. Y star is some amount that doesn't depend on the price level. So it's this vertical line. It's just what our potential output is. How much output we'd get if we used our factors of production at their normal rates. Maybe I should have drawn that one a bit closer, but. So one possibility is that Y is less than Y star. And so our AS and AD curve, here's our AS curve and our AD curve, meet to the left. So here Y, so Y is less than Y star. We're going to call this a recessionary gap. A recessionary output gap. So the economy, if we're using our factor supplies at their normal rates at Y star, that means the unemployment rate is at like its natural rate at Y star. Well, this Y here, the economy is doing worse than that, so we're going to have higher unemployment over here. Call this a recessionary gap if Y is less than Y star. The other possibility, and that's why I'm saying I should have maybe drawn this a bit further that way, is that where AS and AD curve meet are to the right of Y star. So here's AS, here's AD, here's Y. Y is greater than Y star. An inflationary output gap. So here, like, unemployment is really, really low. It's lower than its natural rate. So we can start to think about this in terms of the business cycles, right? I don't think quite have enough room here to talk about it. But this is when we're in this recessionary gap. Maybe I can draw it up here. So let's say we have real Y, and this is time. Here's our potential output, which we're hoping is slowly rising over time, and that's about kind of long run growth. And then we have these business cycles where the actual Y is kind of fluctuating around this Y star. So this is like the actual Y. And so if we're in a recessionary gap, it's any time this pink line, this actual Y, is below this blue potential output. And this inflationary gap is when this pink line is above this Y star. So we have these business cycles, and these are capturing different parts of maybe this business cycle. All right, so now let's talk about factor prices and output gaps. So you've seen we have kind of two different kinds of output gaps, a recessionary and an inflationary. So let's maybe start off with an inflationary output gap. So remember, that means that Y is greater than Y star. Remember that I linked this to unemployment. So let's just kind of redraw it. We're going to do one on either side here. maybe that's just a little bit more room to work, to write some stuff down. So we have this price level and real Y. Here's our Y star. We have an inflationary output gap, which means our AS curve and our AD curve have to meet to the right of this Y star. So maybe we'll call that Y0 and P0. So at Y0, the unemployment rate is lower than the natural rate. The natural rate of unemployment, that frictional and structural unemployment that's going to be there no matter what. And so unemployment is really, really low here. And so what firms need to do to attract or retain workers is they need to start offering higher wages. And so in that sense, there's upward pressure on prices. Sorry, upward pressure on wages, I should say, which is going to have an effect on prices. So there's upward pressure on wages because unemployment rate is so low. Well, we know that that's one of those factors that's affecting this AS curve. And so if there's upward pressure on wages, well, that's a factor price. That's an input price. Labor is an input in production. And so what this is going to do is it's going to shift the AS curve to the left, as we kind of learned about before. And so what's going to happen is if we have this inflationary output gap, this AS curve is going to start shifting in. And it's going to keep on shifting in until there's no pressure on wages. So it's going to keep going up until we can fit this in over here. I'm running out of room. Y star equals Y. So we're going to move back here and maybe we'll say Y1. All right, so if we have an inflationary output gap, unemployment's really low, firms need to start offering higher wages to retain or to attract more workers, but that puts, that raises the cost of production, so our AS curve starts shifting in until we're back at this, until we're at this long run equilibrium, and then there's no pressure on wages to keep going any higher. All right, so that's an inflationary output gap. You can think of a recessionary output gap. The price level, real Y, here's our Y star. It's recessionary, which means that it's a bad curve, but we'll go with it. Means that this equilibrium, this short run equilibrium, Y0 and P0, this Y0 is to the left of our potential, so that's why we have this recessionary output gap. At Y0, the unemployment rate is really high. I mean, it's high in relative terms to the natural rate is what I mean by that. And so there's downward pressure on wages. So wages start to go down. They start to be depressed. This is going to shift the AS curve to the right because it's becoming cheaper to produce. It's going to happen really slow because of what we call sticky wages. Wages are slow to come down. Maybe they're faster to rise, but they're going to slower to come down. So what's happening is this AS curve is starting to shift out here. It's going to take a really long time because wages are slow. Sorry, this pen is running out of ink. Because wages are slow to adjust. And then it's going to come back until we're back at this point. So again, wages are going to adjust until we're at this Y star. until y1 equals y star. Hopefully that's still on the screen. So we're gonna slowly adjust till we're back, just like there, we have a y1. When this wages have eventually adjusted and we're at y star. All right, so that's how factor prices adjust. Inflationary gap, upward pressure on wages, the AS curve starts shifting to the left until we're back at y star. Recessionary gap, there's downward pressure on wages because unemployment's high. Wages are slowly, really slowly, this is gonna happen because of sticky wages. This AS curve is gonna slowly start kicking out to the right until we're back at this y star, or till we get to this y star.